Hey you, welcome back to the Midnight Story. I, Kiara Sherelle, will be reading a bedtime story tonight. And if you've been following along, we are reading James Patterson's Sundays at Tiffany's. Last time, I believe I left off at chapter 20. Let's see if I'm right. I am. Okay. So we're gonna do chapter 22 whenever I feel like stopping per usual. I am recording like a tiny bit earlier tonight, so I might be able to read a little bit more. We'll see. Are you comfy? Yes? Good. Chapter 20. While Hugh flirted with an obnoxiously pretty and pathologically thin fashion model who had seen his play 4 times, I pretended to study the dessert menu, which sadly I knew by heart. God save me. Right then I would have killed for a piece of chocolate dome cake, but I shouldn't. I wouldn't. I really, really couldn't. Take your mind off it. Okay. I had to get back to the salt mines for a Thank Heaven pre-production meeting. I needed to introduce our possible financer, Carl Friedkin, to some of the creative people, casting agent, costume designer, set designer. No dome cake for you, I told myself sternly. Ixnay on the Om Day 8K. I'm laughing because, what was that called? Pig Latin? If you know, you know. Hugh air-kissed his skinny, doting fan while I paid the fat check for our lunch. Mind if I don't go back with you, Jane? He asked. I need to hit the gym. Unconsciously, he preened in the mirror over the bar, stroking his perfectly smooth cheek and checking out his different angles. Of course, I have the kind of face that doesn't even have angles from any direction. No, that's fine, Hugh, I said. I'm good. Actually, I was telling the truth. The less he knew about the behind-the-scenes development of the movie, the better. Since he'd played the role on Broadway, Hugh definitely thought that he should play the lead in the movie. And so did my mother. The two of them had been lobbying hard for me to contract him for the part. I pretty much disagreed with every fiber of my being. Hugh was all wrong for movie close-ups. He just wasn't that kind of an actor. He just wasn't Michael. Hugh gave me a kiss on the cheek, remembering only at the last second to make it real and not an air kiss. Later, babe, he said, and then he was gone. Glowing smile, glowing tan, slicker than a snake on a rainy day. Firmly dismissing the longing to get a piece of ache K to go. I hurried back to 57th Street, arriving right on time. Of course, how very Jane of me. After making sure everyone knew everyone else, I started the meeting. Once I began talking, my nerves settled, and I felt pretty much in charge of the project. We're all very excited by the way the film is shaping up, I said, encouraged by everyone's rapt attention. An A-list director is just about on board. I believe we'll have the formal studio go-ahead by the end of the week. Everyone spontaneously burst into applause, and it warmed my heart. I knew this project couldn't mean as much to my creative team as it did to me. How could it? But I relished their enthusiasm and support. Then the conference room door flew open. No need for applause, Vivian said in sugar-sweet tones. I'll just sit here quietly and listen. Go ahead, Jane, sweetie. Proceed. My heart sank, but I straightened my shoulders, determined to carry on despite knowing that the likelihood of my mother sitting and being quiet, or for that matter listening, was about the same as some weird comet suddenly striking Earth and melting the fat from everyone's thighs. It would be nice, but it wasn't going to happen. I'd like to talk about the sets, I said. Clarence, what are your thoughts? I think we're going to have to build an exact replica of the Astor Court, Clarence said. I was hoping that we might actually shoot at the Regis, I said, both to save money and for added authenticity. Couldn't we, somehow? If I could jump in for a second, Jane, sweetie, my mother said, I think we should build a set. It'll give us more control over the camera angles and lighting. Of course she was right, and suddenly there were sage nods around the room. Nobody ever disagreed with my mother. The costume designer spoke next. I was thinking that the little girl should always wear white when she's with her imaginary friend at the St. Regis. White would perfectly capture the idea of childhood innocence, I thought. Yes, that sounds good, I said, and it's the sort of thing the actual little girl did wear. Vivian interrupted again. Janie, you have to remember, this isn't a biographical film. I think variety in the wardrobe would be better and would add color and texture to the screen. I'm certain of it. Actually, trust me on this, I have no ego, I only speak the truth. And here's a well-duh realization. It was suddenly clear to me that my mother and I had entirely different approaches to making this film. Also, my mother was determined to exert her influence over what was supposed to be my project. What a shocker that was. I have a question, said Carl Friedkin. I turned to him in relief. Yes? So who will be playing the make-believe man? Friedkin asked. Well, he wasn't exactly make-believe, I said, more imaginary. A moment of silence ensued. Oh great, I thought, trying to come up with a quick way to backtrack and finding nothing. The silence stretched on, very uncomfortable. I began to blush. Now they probably thought I was crazy. Excellent, a perfect end to a perfectly heinous day. My mother rose, smiled thinly, and walked to the door. The casting agent said I floated the role past Ryan Gosling's agent, and she was very positive. Of course, there are so many other excellent choices. Matt Damon, Russell Crowe, Hugh Jackman, and Grant. Even Patrick Dempsey. My mother turned in the doorway knowing every eye was on her. Looking right at me, she said, You play the Hollywood name game as much as you want, kiddies, but I have a feeling that the perfect leading man is right under your noses. Everyone looked confused, except me. I'd just had lunch with the Hugh who Vivian had already chosen for Thank Heaven, and it wasn't Jackman or Grant. 21. Years ago, when he and Jane had wanted to escape from her constrictive and smothering Park Avenue worlds, they would take the crosstown bus to the Upper West Side. What a terrifically funky and eclectic world it had been back then. Before the baby boomers with their McLaren strollers, wide-eyed Michael and Jane had explored second-hand clothing stores and West African restaurants, Spanish bodegas, and Jewish delis, all mixed together and coexisting in harmony. Now, Michael couldn't help thinking that same neighborhood had all the character and charm of a suburban mall in central Ohio. Goldblum's dry cleaners had become a Prada. Johannes' Hardware was a Baby Gap. The world's best bagels place had turned into a fancy soap store. As Michael thought of those hot, terrific bagels now, all he could taste was soap. Only one really terrific place remained from the old Jane and Michael days. The Olympia Diner, at the corner of Broadway and 77th. It was run by third-generation Greeks who still managed to serve up the greasiest eggs, the fattiest bacon, and coffee so strong you had to brush your teeth after you had a cup. Michael thought it was quite possibly the best food in all of New York, way better than Daniel or per se. It was worth a visit just for the sign in the window. Yes, 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 pancakes all around your clock. Since Michael had been back in New York this time, the Olympia had become a Saturday morning ritual. Today he was there with Owen Pulaski as payback for the party at which he had met Claire de Lune. He'd had a really nice time with her talking about Jane, apparently. So what happened, Mike? Owen asked as they walked to a booth on the Broadway side of the diner. I saw you letting the lovely Claire talk your ear off, Then poof, the two of you were gone, off into the night. He grinned and punched Michael's arm. We talked, Michael said, that's all. Just talked till about 4 or so. She's terrific, only 22 and wise beyond her years. Talked, eh? Owen gave Michael a knowing glance. I bet you were up all night talking about women's shoes, or maybe the Yankees, right? Not the gents, you dog. Owen leaned across the table and there was that irresistible smile of his. Probably the one he'd had since he was a boy. Tell you the truth, Mike, I've never been with a woman who wasn't a sex object for me. And buddy, I was married once. For 2 years, which should qualify as a first and second marriage. Really? Michael asked, in astonishment. All women are sex objects to you? Seriously? That smile of Owen's was back, the twinkle in his eye. Now don't be judging me, Michael, don't be judging me. No, I'm not, Owen, it's just, I don't know. There's so much more to women than that. Sure, the physical, but also that connection between two people. I think that love can be great. Ah, you think, said Owen, seizing on that, but you don't know, do you? So there's a little bullshit tossed in there, just a little. Am I allowed to curse on YouTube? I don't know. He pinched his big 5 fingers together, giving Michael the devilish Owen smile. The twinkle, the dimple, Michael almost felt seduced. Owen laughed. It's great, isn't it? The look. My secret weapon. Years of practice, son. Years of practice. Michael turned his attention to the morning crossword while they waited. And Owen took the sports section, occasionally snorting and muttering out loud about teams, athletes, and horses who had personally let him down. Give me a 5-letter word for feel deep love, Michael said a couple of minutes later. Owen didn't look up. Horny. And we're surprised you're single? Said Patty, shapely, very cute, long blonde hair, who often waited on Michael at the Olympia and whom he was crazy about. Owen laughed, not at all put off. What's good today, honey, besides you? Patty raised one eyebrow and took out her pad. Michael said, what makes you think he's single? Get the eggs Benedict, she told Owen. Real Holland Russ, turning to Michael. She said, he's got that look. What look, Michael asked. This was the kind of stuff he loved, the get to the heart of humanity info. That single look, she said, tucking her pen behind one perfect, shell-like ear. She looked Owen up and down as if he weren't conscious. Kind of hungry. Owen gave her his killer grin, hungry for you. Patty rolled her eyes, and they ordered. She nodded and swept off, blonde and graceful as Owen watched her every move. Patty's very sweet, single mom, has a little girl who's 4, said Michael pointedly as soon as she was gone. Owen smiled. Only one kid? I always wanted to find a single mom with at least 3 or 4, he winked at Michael. Just kidding, Pojo. Don't be judging me, Michael. I like Patty. She just might be the one. Suddenly, Michael was sorry that he'd brought Owen, his grin and his twinkling eyes, to the Olympia. Don't go and hurt her, said Michael. Not quite a serious warning, but almost. Don't be judging, Mikey, said Owen. Chapter 22. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, feeling like a soldier marching off to war. The pressure was on, but I had done it to myself this time. I had less than 45 minutes to do a complete L makeover, and I needed the works. Hair, clothes, makeup, accessories. If they had a pill that made you lose 15 pounds in 45 minutes but shaved 5 years off your life, I would have taken 2. I was meeting Hugh at the Metropolitan Museum, and I needed to look my absolute best, which in my case equaled, well, presentable. There was a cocktail party and reception there for a Jacqueline Kennedy fashion retrospective. I would be on Hugh's arm, which meant that I would be watched closely, even jealously in some circles. Okay, first set the mood. I put John Legend's once again in the CD player and cranked it. That was her first mistake. If that didn't inspire me, I was SOL. Ah, yes, that was much better. Second, face the enemy. In my bathroom was a cabinet that held nothing but unopened makeup. Here were the bottles and tubes, lotions, and potions that Vivian regularly gave me. After 30 plus years, she was still somehow hoping that I'd turn from ugly duckling into gorgeous swan. Not going to happen, Viv. Not today, not any day. Third, arm yourself. I took a deep breath and opened a package of Clinique Dramatically Different Moisturizing Lotion. I smoothed it onto my skin in clockwise circles as directed. So far, I was not seeing a dramatic difference, but I persevered. Next came a thin base of barely there foundation, which was guaranteed to give me a perfect porcelain finish. With the blotches hidden, my skin looked, let's say 20% better. Not exactly great, but an improvement at least to my psyche. Finally, I did the best I could with Bobbi Brown mascara, eyeliner, and lipstick. Was Bobbi Brown a man or a woman? No clue. Fortunately and amazingly, I had good hair color, a kind of bubbly blonde, and because of my mother's relentless urging, I could rest assured that I had a very good haircut. Without a good haircut, everything else is for nothing, said Vivian. Then of course she had added, and you need all the help you can get. Throwing caution to the wind, I took a few big scoops of Calvin Klein styling mousse and ran my fingers through my hair. The curls fluffed up and framed my face. I don't know whether it looked good or bad, but it looked different and modern and not like plain Jane. Suddenly, my mind flashed back to when Michael and I were inseparable. War paint, Michael had said that when he'd seen Vivian dressed to the teeth for a Tony ceremony. I'd giggled, but Vivian had been dazzling, a slender blonde goddess whom I could never hope to resemble. Now, looking at myself in the mirror, I saw with surprise that in fact I did have hints of Vivian in my face. I had her cheekbones, or at least I would if I lost 20 pounds. My eyes were larger, rounder, and blue, but I had her long, thick eyelashes. My nose was more pronounced, but it was definitely more like hers and not my father's. I'd never noticed any of this before. I remembered Michael looking down at me with love, saying, "You're a beauty," and sounding as though he really meant it. Is this what he had meant? He had seen my mother in my face? Or maybe he thought I was beautiful for myself. Nah. Jane, keep on task. Throwing my shoulders back, I flung open the doors to my walk-in closet, trying not to feel as if there were an eager crowd in there hoping to see me devoured by lions. Oh God, it was worse than I thought. My panicked eyes took in the sea of beige and black and earth tones. I had nothing remotely sexy or even colorful. Wait 1 minute. What had we here? Pawing through some out-of-season coats, I spied a couple of retro Chanel cocktail dresses pushed way to the back. Vivian, of course, had given them to me back when I was a teenager. I yanked one out and examined it. It looked like something straight out of a 1950s society magazine. Hot pink with a tight-fitted bodice and a full flared flirty skirt that stopped right at the knee. Some night you'll be totally bored with everything you own, darling, and you'll want to wear one of these, she had said. Mark my words. Excuse me, my allergies are starting to flare up, and I'm not sure why, but... She'd been right, of course. She'd picked out the perfect thing. She was totally saving my butt, the same butt that hadn't seen a Stairmaster since God knew when. I put on the dress, loving the silky fabric, then I couldn't zip it up. On a mission now, I dumped out my lingerie drawer onto my bed. Under my sensible bras and full coverage briefs was a one-piece foundation garment, which with any luck at all was made of Kevlar and would do the trick. I struggled into it. I put on the dress. No go with the zipper. I got a pair of pliers from the kitchen junk drawer. The zipper was no match for them, and the bonus was that the too tight bodice gave my boobs nowhere to go but up, up, up. As long as I didn't need to bend down or take deep breaths tonight, I was golden. The only thing more daring than my decision to wear the pink dress was my decision not to wear a jacket with it. If my arms were a little fleshy, let them be. In the best of worlds and the best of lights, maybe I would look voluptuous. I couldn't even bring myself to peek in the full-length mirror in the hall. What if I looked like a fat kid in a Halloween costume? There was no time to change anyway. I took the elevator to the lobby and I was off to a good start. The doorman said, "You look lovely tonight, Miss Margot. Would you like a cab?" "No thanks. I think I'll walk. I kind of want to be seen for a change." Chapter 23. I walked west on 75th Street, then made my way uptown, and for once in my life I felt as though I actually belonged on 5th Avenue. As I climbed the steps of the Metropolitan Museum, I definitely felt different. My heels clicked rapidly on the stone stairs. I felt exotic, glamorous, and womanly. I didn't feel like Jane. I spotted Hugh standing at the top, leaning against a column as if posing for a Ralph Lauren ad. His jacket was slung over his shoulder, and he was slouching just so, pretending not to notice the many admiring glances sent his way. He stood up straight as soon as he saw me, and his eyes widened. "My God," he said, "what have you done with Jane?" I laughed, pleased that he had noticed, and he kissed me on the cheek, then lightly on the lips. Then he stood back and examined me again. "What did you do to yourself?" "I decided I was tired of you always being the pretty one," I said flirtatiously, trying on a new behavior as well as a new look. "You mean the only pretty one?" Hugh countered, squashing my happiness a bit. He laughed to soften it, but he just hadn't been able to resist, had he? No wonder he and Vivian got along so well. He took my hand in his, though, and led me toward the Grand Museum doors. We made a good couple, and I actually fit in with all the well-dressed men and glam women parading into the reception. I was happy, I looked good, but one disturbing question kept turning over in my mind. Did I really want to go to all of this trouble for the rest of my life? Chapter 24. That Jackie Kennedy sure knew how to pick out clothes. Each outfit was more incredible than the last, and with every sip of my apple martini, those dresses of hers grew even more incredible. The sky blue Givenchy, the solid gold Cassini, the beige Chanel daytime suit that would never go out of style. Givenchy. Is that how you say it? I'm sorry, that was... The beige Chanel daytime suit that would never go out of style. The best thing that happened to me that night, except for Hugh being amazed at how good I looked, was being greeted by a stone-faced Anna Wintour, editor of Vogue, who said, "You look well, Jane. High praise indeed. My knee is killing me from tennis this morning. Let's sit down," Hugh finally said. So we sat at a tiny cocktail table in the museum's great hall. I wanted to stand to be seen for once in my life, but on second thought, my Jimmy Choos could use a little break. "I'm going to smoke a cigarette until someone comes and throws water on me," Hugh said. Before he had time to light it, I looked up and saw Felicia Weinstein, Hugh's smarmy, pushing agent, walking toward us. She was arm in arm with Ronnie Morgan, Hugh's equally shark-like business manager. My eyes widened. Jane, look, said Hugh, all surprised with delight. Felicia and Ronnie, what a coincidence. Hey, why don't you guys join us? That's okay, isn't it, darling? I was speechless, but Hugh was already scooting over to make room for his entourage. With cold humiliation, I realized I had been set up. I had practically snapped a wrist getting into my body slimmer for Hugh's agent and his manager. I couldn't believe it. I should have known something was suspicious. Hugh had been on time for once. What were they doing here? I whispered, already feeling a sharp pain in the pit of my stomach. Suddenly, my apple martini felt like lead marbles. Felicia mentioned they might pop by, said Hugh. My eyes narrowed. Felicia was too much. Too much hair, too much makeup, actually cracking gum. What? I muttered, disgusted. She'd leave her pimp outside? Hugh gave me a sharp glance but didn't respond. As for Ronnie, he had on a Miami Vice t-shirt and jacket combo. Perfect for taking a meeting at Chateau Marmont in Hollywood in the mid-1980s. Fancy meeting you two here, Ronnie said as he delivered a moist kiss to my cheek. Fashion lovers all, Felicia said, hardly bothering to look at me. I'll get drinks, Hugh said cheerfully, and the cowardly lion popped up as if he were spring-loaded. These apple martinis are delicioso. No, Ronnie said, I work for you. I'll get them. But Hugh insisted, walking away, and I was left sitting with those two big sharks at a very small table. You look so interesting tonight, Felicia said. Pink, huh? Is that a compliment? I asked. You decide, darling. I decided no. My skin was crawling, and I thought I might break out with hives. Ronnie chuckled awkwardly and removed his jacket, which made him the only man in a room of 500 people in his shirt sleeves. Jane, now that we're together, let's chat, shall we? Okay, can I just say, how dare you come into a space where I am, where you're about to literally ask me for something, but you're throwing shade and disrespecting me? It would have been a no just off the strength of that. Okay. Let's chat, shall we? He said with false heartiness. Felicia and I were going to get on your calendar this week, but since we've happened to run into you, Hugh returned, apple martinis all around, he said, and beamed. Hugh, this was so lucky, us running into you like this, Felicia said. Yes, indeedy, said Ronnie. No point beating around the proverbial bush, Jane, Ronnie went on, turning to me. Felicia and I, and Hugh, of course, well, we just need to know when you'll be signing him officially for the lead in the movie of Think Heaven. We have other offers, but we want this one. Hugh does, anyway, and you know what else? Hugh deserves it, don't you agree? You must, we all do, and so does Vivian. I was furious and nervous. Did I say furious? I was furious and nervous and sad, but mostly furious. I don't think this is the time or the place to discuss it, I said, feeling my face turn to stone. I think this is an excellent place and time, Hugh said, his eyes steely, any trace of a smile vanishing. Oh, let's talk it out, Jane. It's a fun subject at a fun event, Felicia said. It was not a fun subject, and it was no longer a fun event. You do plan on giving me the part in that movie, don't you, Jane? Hugh asked, his eyes boring into my face. How could you not? We need to examine all our options, I said stiffly, because you weren't right in the play and I don't want you to screw up my movie. My whole romantic future was going up in flames right now under the watchful, ferret-like eyes of Felicia and Ronnie. I hated this so much. Suddenly, it felt as if all 500 people in the room had stopped talking at once. I'm just not sure if you're right for the part, Hugh. I finally spoke in the quietest voice. I'm being honest. I reached for his hand, but he pulled it away. You need to change your mind, he said, intently, his jaw set. He'd never quite bullied me before, and I wanted to whack him in the head with my Judith Lieber clutch. I was right for the stage, he went on. I should have won a Tony. I wanted to say that he was, at best, only okay in the stage version. He hadn't even been nominated for a Tony. It was the little girl who had won the hearts of the audience and the critics. Hugh's reviews were, well, respectable. His best moment had occurred when he was dressing to meet the little girl at school. For about 5 minutes, he'd had to walk around with his shirt off. He was very good at that. Suddenly, Hugh stood up. I want that role, Jane. I deserve it. I made that play work. Me. I'm leaving now. If I don't, I'll pick up this fucking table and throw it against the wall. You're just playing some stupid game. Fuck you and fuck Jacqueline Kennedy. Suddenly, I was alone again. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. Suddenly, I was alone with Ronnie and Felicia. What had happened to this night? Ronnie spoke. I'll go get us another drink. Not for me, I said. I already feel like I'm going to throw up. A minute later, I was listening to my heels clicking through the great hall, then down the steep museum steps. I felt like a stupid, chunky idiot in a much too young, stupid pink dress that was now being stained by my tears and mascara. Chapter 25. Michael was becoming comfortable with his stalker status, maybe a little too comfortable. This is the last time, he promised himself. It all ends tonight. An hour or so earlier, Michael had been floored when Jane walked out of her apartment looking like $1,000,000. He'd shadowed her as she walked from her apartment to the museum. There was a determined movement in her walk, he noticed, a strut in her step, and that hot pink dress. She looked as though she'd recovered from Hugh, so maybe she was okay now. Maybe Michael could just be happy for her as he trailed along at a safe distance. If Jane was okay now, then it was time for him to disappear again. Skip forward about an hour, and he was following her back down Fifth Avenue. Jane was walking alone again, but much slower now. Her shoulders hunched, no spring whatsoever in her step. When she cut over to Madison Avenue, she was stopped and stared aimlessly in several stores' windows, including one of those places that sell cigarettes and Tic Tacs. Somehow she seemed very alone to him, and so sad and so miserable. Obviously something bad had happened at the Met. No doubt it had something to do with that creep Hugh McGrath. More and more Michael thought that he was to blame. He made her a bunch of lofty promises and predictions when she was just a kid, and they simply hadn't come true. He had told her, and he'd believed, that someone special would come along for her. Well, obviously that hadn't happened. Could he help her now? No, he didn't think so. Jane wasn't his responsibility anymore. He couldn't interfere, but he definitely wanted to. His heart went out to her. He wanted to hold her and comfort her, just the way he had done when she was little. At 76th Street, Jane crossed Madison Avenue, then walked through the side entrance of the Carlisle Hotel and into Bemelman's bar. What should he do? What were his options? Michael waited a few seconds and decided to follow her inside. It's giving Joe. That pink dress of hers was easy to track, and there Jane was at the bar. Michael sat at the far end of the bar, positioned beyond two fairly large out-of-towner types. From what he could tell, they were drinking the house scotch with Budweiser chasers and gulping handfuls of peanuts. Jane ordered a gin and tonic. She looked beautiful sitting there in a tragic Russian heroine kind of way. Come on, Jane, chin up. You're so much better than this. For a crazy second, he considered going over and talking to her. She wouldn't remember him after all. He would be just some guy. In truth, he didn't know what to do, which was very unusual. In fact, he'd never been unsure before about anything. What was he doing sitting in Bemelman's with Jane Margot? Well, not exactly with her, but wishing that he were. It made no sense. It was maddening, confusing, and just not a good idea. No, actually, this was insane. What can I get you, sir? The bartender asked. Nothing, I'm afraid. I just remembered I was supposed to meet somebody somewhere else. I'm sorry. The bartender shrugged and Michael stood feeling awful, unlike himself. Head down, he started for the door. He turned and took one last look at Jane. What a beautiful woman she'd become, just as special as ever. Goodbye, Jane, he said, and then he left without talking to her. It was the only way. In fact, he wished he'd never seen her again. Chapter 26. The gin and tonic was cold and fizzy and crisp. Tanqueray cut by lime, just right. Was there any better place than Bemelman's to sit and think and feel disgustingly sorry for yourself? I was a 32-year-old woman who had everything and nothing going for her at the exact same time. I had a good job that was theoretically fascinating, but it consumed my hours and days and gave me almost no personal satisfaction. I had a wealthy, successful mother, but she treated me like an idiot child and called it love, and worse, I desperately loved her anyway. I had a boyfriend. Yes, that was for certain, had a boyfriend, past tense. My mind began racing in a lot of bad directions all at the same time. Maybe my goals were too long-term. Maybe I should figure out a way to be happy, not for a lifetime, but for an hour or two. Maybe there was somebody out there who wanted to sit around with me and order in Japanese and not hate watching a DVD of You've Got Mail or The Shawshank Redemption for the fourth or fifth time. Suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder, which almost made me jump and scream, in that suave woman of the world way I have. I turned to see a couple of men grinning somewhat ironically. Their loud checked sport jackets looked out of place in the Carlisle Hotel, but then they'd probably look out of place anywhere. I didn't need this kind of attention right now. Evening, ma'am, said Thing One. My friend and I were wondering if you wanted some company. No, thank you, I said firmly. I'm just winding down after a long day. I'm good, thanks. You seem all alone, said Thing Two, and kinda down in the mouth, seems to us anyway. I'm really fine, more than fine. Thank you for asking. I even faked a smile for them. Fine and dandy, that's me. Bartender, the lady could use another drink. I looked the bartender in the eyes and shook my head. I really don't want another drink, and I don't want to be talking to these guys right now. Maybe you two gentlemen want to move back down to the other end? The bartender said, leaning on the bar. They shrugged, but as they walked away, one of them said, This bar sure has some uppity hookers. The bartender and I looked at each other in shock, and then we both laughed. It was either that or cry. In my pink designer dress, $500 shoes, carefully applied makeup, and chic haircut, I looked like a call girl. How much money did call girls make these days? Still, I turned around on the bar stool to examine myself in the wall mirror. The image was mostly a blur of people and also reflected the colorful Bemelman's murals over the bar. Smiling faintly, I looked at my reflection with my ruined eye makeup, my pink nose. I would be one lame call girl. Then I noticed something else. I squinted, feeling my heart instantly kick into high speed. It was completely, totally, utterly impossible. For a moment, my eye caught the image of a man leaving the bar. He seemed to be looking at me. Of course I was wrong, but I would have sworn it was Michael. As fast as I saw him, I lost him out the door. Now that was really crazy. I took a sip of my drink. My hands were shaking when I set it down. That man, it was ridiculous. My subconscious had used a trick of the light, a shadow, to create an image of the person I missed the most, wanted to most see. Okay, I was truly worried. Was I going off the deep end? I was starting to see things. How unhappy that a person needs to be before her subconscious would kick in, try to make things better. How bad off was I that I thought I had seen Michael? Michael who was imaginary. Michael who didn't exist. Had I wished so hard for Michael that he had reappeared for a second? Wake up, Jane. It had to be a trick of flashing light. Maybe a cigarette lighter. I took a $20 bill from my purse and left it on the bar. Then I walked outside and headed home. I knew I hadn't seen Michael, of course, but the much more important question was, why hadn't I ever been able to forget him? I think I am going to leave off there just to be like on a little cliffhanger thing, since we now know that Jane has seen Michael, but Michael doesn't know that Jane has seen him yet, so that's going to be exciting when they do finally meet up. What was that? Chapter 27 that we left off, okay? So I have been getting some feedback that these are actually helping put somebody to sleep. So like I'm very excited because that is literally the point of all of this. If you're up trying to follow along with the story, like that's cool too. Like play it during the day when you have something to do and you just need some background noise if you want to like actually follow along. But if you're using these videos to go to sleep and you're playing them at night, like don't try to stay up and listen to it. Just let it play and you fall asleep and just let it play in the background. Okay, but get your rest. All right, I'm gonna get mine and hopefully make it to work on time in the morning. But okay, guys, good night. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next episode. Bye.